Pokemon Champions, the battling game the VGC 2026 World Championship will be played on, is introducing the Omni Ring. This item will grant players the ability to use previous generation signature mechanics in battles. The Pokemon World Championship this year will be played in Champions, and as a veteran competitive player, I'm starting my preparation early by researching which Pokemon will be the biggest winners of Pokemon Champions. But first, let's set some ground rules. Although we don't know which Pokemon will be immediately available on Champions release, for the purpose of this video, I'm assuming we'll get access to all previously legal Pokemon at least some point in VGC's competitive lifecycle. Additionally, instead of showing off Pokemon that were already so broken in their competitive formats that even without any changes, they'll be the same despicable creatures we all know and love, I'll be highlighting the Pokemon that will most benefit from Mega Evolution, Z-Moves, Dynamax, Terastalization, and other between generation changes that were previously unavailable to Pokemon and will push them far beyond their previous limits. Since it's been confirmed that Worlds will include Megas for the first time since 2019, we'll start there by taking a look at the most improved Mega Evolutions in Pokemon Champions. As a note, at the time of recording this, Pokemon ZA Mega Evolution abilities are unknown to us, and as easy as it would be to take a high BST Pokemon like Heatran, say, yeah, I think that guy will be pretty good, throw it on the thumbnail and call it a day, it's typically abilities and not stats that make or break a Mega Pokemon's viability. For that reason, I'm leaving the ZA Mega Evolutions off the list, no matter how cool they may look. With all that being said, let's take a look at our first winner of Pokemon Champions, Mega Metagross. Despite Metagross's incredible speed, bulk, and attacking stats, combined with its amazing ability in Tough Claws, effectively granting it a no drawback life orb on most of its move pool, since 2015, Metagross has been on the lower end of Mega viability. We can primarily blame Metagross's move pool for this, which although has great coverage moves for most situations, has an underwhelming selection of high base power options, with its most reliable stab moves being 80 base power. This lack of raw power kept Mega Metagross from keeping up with well-developed defensive cores, especially after the release of Incineroar and its ubiquitous use in 2018. So, history lesson aside, why is Metagross my first Mega Evolution pick to break out in Pokemon Champions? It's been 7 long years since Megas were legal, and since then, many Pokemon have gotten updates to their move pools. In Metagross's case, the addition of Heavy Slam, a move that changes base power depending on how much heavier the user is than the target, is a massive deal. Get it? Massive like mass? Anyways, since it outweighs almost every non-legendary Pokemon, this is a huge upgrade for Mega Metagross. After Tough Claws, against lighter targets, Heavy Slam reaches 156 base power, somehow stronger than Hyper Beam with absolutely no drawback. Metagross also used to have to rely on the famously unreliably 90% accurate Zen Headbutt as its Psychic-type stab move. Since then, it's gotten access to the 100% accurate Psychic Fangs, which comes with 5 added base power that can be surprisingly important against Pokemon like Amoonguss, and for good measure, the added utility of breaking through screens because why not? Combining the buff to its stab options, its array of utility moves, and the potential to pair its newfound power with Chien-Pao's Sword of Ruin to take some really silly KOs, and you start to see why I'm preemptively terrified of Mega Metagross. However, there is one Mega Pokemon that fills me with even more existential dread than Mega Metagross, and that Pokemon is Mega Gengar. Mega Gengar had a slow start competitively in 2014 and 15 with only scattered success, but in 2016 it became popular for its ability Shadow Tag, which blocks switching and counters the format's most popular duo in Primal Groudon and Xerneas by trapping them on the field and forcing Groudon to lose its Primal Sunlight advantage against Primal Kyogre, and using Taunt to prevent Xerneas from using the super broken move Geomancy to boost its stats, while resisting any Fairy-type attacks due to its natural poison typing. This strength culminated in Wolf Click winning Mega Gengar's first World Championship. And the very next opportunity Mega Gengar got, it reached finals on Emilio Forbes' innovative Perish Trap team, the highest world finish ever achieved by that particular strategy. This track record makes Gengar one of the most feared Megas in any formats it's allowed, bringing the best out of both experienced team builders and players. Despite competitive players never forgetting how great Mega Gengar would be if it came back, Game Freak apparently did, and decided to give it a new move between generations. A move that forces you to repeat your previous move for 3 turns unless you switch out. Ladies and gentlemen, Encore. Ladies and gentlemen, Encore. Whoa, that was trippy. Thankfully, I had the choice to switch out of that Encore, but if Mega Gengar had used it, I wouldn't have been so lucky. With Shadow Tag and Encore, Mega Gengar can trap you on the field going for ineffective moves while it and its partner 2v1 your remaining Pokemon, with limited defensive counterplay since if you protect to stall out your partner's Encore turns, well, you see where this is going. While it may seem obvious to simply avoid clicking Encore susceptible moves in front of Mega Gengar in the first place, Encore changes the way you have to play entire battles. Even if Mega Gengar isn't on the field, if your opponent catches you going for moves like Fake Out or Protect, They can switch in their Mega Gengar that turn and make your life a nightmare, where I can see this being especially deadly is on hyper-offensive teams threatening massive damage. In the face of Gengar, it's hard to stop it and its powerful partners from overpowering you with damage, because if you ever make a defensive move like Protect, Encore will quickly make you regret it. With Shadow Tag, Gengar won Worlds and made the finals in consecutive attempts, as well as scored a number of international wins by limiting one of competitive Pokemon's core defensive options in switching. I can't imagine what it'll be able to accomplish once it can effectively answer the few remaining defensive options of Fake Out and Protect with Encore. Phew, that was pretty scary, but not as scary as how many of you aren't subscribed to the channel. Don't worry, Mega Gengar isn't around to Encore me into asking again. Back to the video. But please subscribe. Let's move on to the last and hopefully less existentially threatening Mega Evolution in this video, Mega Charizard Y. Hear me out. I promise this isn't just a clickbait pick for the thumbnail. I genuinely think Charizard Y is poised to be the strongest it's ever been. In non-restricted formats, Charizard used to be a lower top tier mecha. It has a high damage ceiling with drought boosted overheats and heat waves, but shaky accuracy and a weak defensive profile make it a volatile glass cannon. On top of that volatility, building consistent Charizard teams is really challenging, since with harsh sunlight active in most battles, it's difficult to fit a water type on the team to offensively and defensively beat sun counters like Heatran, Tyranitar, and Incineroar. Additionally, although Charizard is fast, it's still outsped and one at KO'd by many faster rock and electric types, or honestly, any Choice Scarf Pokemon doing its best rock type impression. Since its last major success in VGC 2018, Charizard basically hasn't changed at all. Sure, now you've got Scorching Sands instead of Hidden Power Ground for Heatran, and pretty slow dynamic speed Tailwinds I guess, but neither of these move the needle very much on Charizard's viability. No. What actually has me excited as one of Mega Charizard Y's biggest fans is the new ability introduced in Scarlet and Violet, Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the signature ability of the past Paradox Pokemon, which boosts their highest stat in the harsh sunlight. Given what I said about Zard Y teams feeling lopsided due to its missing water type problems, Walking Wake is its most obvious new partner. With Hydro Steam, Wake has a water type move that can easily one-hit KO the fire and rock types that would otherwise stall out Charizard, while also being a valuable switch in to water type attacks if rain is set. You can run a speed boosting Photosynthesis Walking Wake to outspeed and one-hit KO Landorus T with Hydro Steam before it can use Rock Slide. It doesn't end there though. Mega Charizard Y also has natural synergy with the other top Photosynthesis Pokemon. Similar to Giovanni Sischke's World Championship winning team, with Sun active, Fluttermane can gain a speed boost while holding a Focus Sash to provide valuable IC1 speed support for Zard Y to outspeed and KO faster threats, or simply fire off its powerful stab moves from its impressive 135 base special attack stat. Another potential partner, Raging Bolt, gains a special attack boost and can deal with threatening bulky water types that Charizard struggles to clear, while also being able to offset Charizard's awkward speed tier with its powerful priority Thunderclap. If you want to get crazy, we can even substitute Landorus Therian, Charizard's strongest partner, with Great Tusk, to deal massive damage with Photosynthesis attack boosted headlong rushes and close combats, if Landorus Stomping Tantrum just isn't cutting it anymore. I myself won a regional with Amoonguss Charizard, but one of the first things I'll be trying in Champions will be Brute Bonnet, another world champion on Geo's Sun team that buffs up the defensive profile of what is conventionally seen as a hyper-offensive team composition. Overall, the addition of the past Paradox Pokemon is a huge indirect buff to drought setters like Mega Charizard Y, and I think it's set up perfectly this generation to overheat its way to greatness. Speaking of overheat, there is one other Pokemon I've forgotten to mention that benefits from Charizard's drought, and it's something of a fan favorite. That's right, say it with me all, Chi-Yu, Modest, Beads of Ruin, Sun Boosted, Helping Hand, Inferno Overdrive. Mouthful. Yep, we're kicking off Z moves right, with what might be the most frightening Z user in all of Champions, Chi-Yu. For those unaware, Z moves are powered up versions of standard moves that any Pokemon holding an appropriately typed Z crystal can use. Z moves are so strong that they deal 1/4 damage through Protect, and most competitive Z moves vary from 140 base power to as high as 195 for moves like Overheat. While the move power is generally equal or slightly stronger than a Choice Band or Choice Specs attack, in exchange for being one-time use, Z moves come without the drawback of needing to select the same move every turn. This means that instead of needing to exchange damage potential for needing to switch out whenever a counter enters the field, with Z moves you can weave in different attacks, including Protect, until you've maneuvered yourself into a safe position to fire off your one-time nuke and overwhelm your opponent. Although Choice Scarf Chi-Yu has won the World Championship, Choice Spec sets have struggled to find consistent success due to its frailty and low speed. With the 195 base power Inferno Overdrive based off of Overheat, Chi-Yu keeps the same damage output on Overheat as Choice Specs, while getting to position itself defensively with Protect. And you can remove the uncertainty of accuracy from important turns of the battle, since Z moves will always hit their target. While I think Fire MZ Chi-Yu will be popular, I don't think it will be overpowered on its own. What may be overpowered is that when combined with Charizard's Drought ability, Inferno Overdrive one-hit KOs all but the bulkiest of Pokemon in the metagame, some of which even resist its attacks. Not to mention, after you've gone for that Inferno Overdrive, you still have a neutral special attack Chi-Yu with Overheat primed in Sun, burn through another chunk of your opponent's team. Now being realistic, Choice Scarf and Focus Sash will remain very strong, high usage sets. But I do expect Fire MZ to get usage and make Chi-Yu a powerful balance breaker, due to its ability to stack multipliers and become stronger than almost any other Z move. And when I say almost, I actually have a Pokemon in mind. One that's won the World Championship in its first year and has won multiple international tournaments since. I'm talking about Miraidon. Miraidon was one of the most broken Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet, so why would it be any surprise it's still broken in Pokemon Champions? Well, it's not actually Miraidon's current strength with the Choice Specs item that interests me, but its similarities to the strongest Pokemon in the earliest Z-Move format of 2017, Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko's most popular set was Electrium Z, Thunderbolt, and Volt Switch. With its ability Electric Surge setting up the Electric Terrain to boost the base power of its electric type attacks, Tapu Koko always forced an immediate defensive response to Gigavolt Havoc from its opponents. However, counterplay like switching in a ground type or changing the terrain to survive a Z move were often addressed by Koko using Volt Switch that turn, or even safely next turn due to its high speed stat letting it move first in most situations. Not only would this lead to extra damage to secure KOs for partners, it also let Koko switch back in later in the battle to regain the terrain advantage with a few Pokemon that could have survived a Gigavolt Havoc chip down into range. Miraidon found success in early Scarlet and Violet doing its best imitation of Electrium Z Tapu Koko by running a Terra Electric Choice Spec set, which combined with this Hadron engine boost allowed Miraidon to 1-hit KO neutral targets with Volt Switch and switch out safely before getting counterattacked. This set was exploitable though, since you could double protect in front of Miraidon to scout which move it choice locked into and respond accordingly. However, with access to Z Crystals, Miraidon will be able to perfectly imitate Prime Tapu Koko's versatility in being able to respond to any defensive option an opponent goes for. Opponent double protects turn 1, sounds like a free Gigavolt Havoc KO on turn 2 to me. Terrain overridden as your Electro Drift only did 40%? Well, with your natural bulk, unlike Koko, you probably survive the turn and are fast enough to Volt Switch and reset the situation for later in the game. That should all sound relatively familiar, but where things get really scary is the main difference between Koko and Miraidon, their typings. While Koko's Fairy typing is strong defensively, it leaves much to be desired offensively, forcing it to rely on Dazzling Gleams unboosted by terrain to deal meaningful damage to electric-type resistances and immunities. Miraidon, on the other hand, is not hurting for damage, with its access to a Stab, Hadron Engine boosted Draco Meteor, which better deals with common bulky grass, ground, and dragon types than Koko's 95 special attack Dazzling Gleam ever could. To top it all off, Tapu Koko can only dream of having Miraidon stat spread, and even loses out in the speed department. However, while Koko had the benefit of playing in a format where it held the speed ceiling, with introductions like Booster Energy Fluttermane, Iron Bundle, and Calyrex Shadow Rider, Miraidon should expect more resistance than Koko used to face. Despite that though, I believe that Gigavolt Havoc Miraidon has all the current necessary to break through that resistance and become one of the top threats of champions. Breaking through, huh? Now that I mention it, the last Z-move I want to talk about is a Pokemon already well known for breaking through protects. You know it, you've loved it since you first saw it in Generation 8, the beautiful, the inimitatable Dragapult. Look, believe it or not, I don't think Z-moves are inherently that big of a boon for Urshifu, especially when compared to Dragapult. Dragapult proved to be a dominant threat in the early Dynamax days, using its powerful Max Phantasm and Max Airstream to lower defenses and raise its team's speed, setting the table for it and its partners to chew through the opponent's team once Dynamax ended. Since then, it's had high peaks but limited sustained success, largely limited to strong metagame calls like Michael Durbesti's World's Finalist team and PokeAlex's NAIC victory. Both of them used the same set, Terrago's Choice Band that could use Phantom Force for massive delayed damage that broke through Protect, or immediate damage with Terra Blast. Sets lacking the immediate Ghost-type damage of Terra Blast struggle against the ever-present Fairy-type in competitive games, and the Choice Band set makes Dragapult vulnerable when Sucker Punch is a common force in the metagame. While these are challenges no matter the available mechanics, I believe Dragapult could become extremely strong with access to Never-Ending Nightmare. By carrying the Ghostium Z Crystal, Dragapult gains several advantages. The most minor one is that Z moves can't be knocked off, so your Incineroar matchup gets a tiny bit better, but hey, we'll take anything we can get against that demon. More importantly is the ability to run non-attacking moves to dodge Sucker Punch. The first move that comes to mind is Dragon Dance to mimic Max Phantasm and Airstream's stat modifiers. After one Dragon Dance, you reliably outspeed every Pokemon in the metagame, even Booster Energy Iron Bundle and Fluttermane, and can immediately KO back with a +1 Never-Ending Nightmare. Dragapult also plays perfectly into common Z-move protection counterplay. Should you read a player protecting in fear of a Never-Ending Nightmare, Dragon Dance makes you stronger on the next turn. Dragon Darts smart targets and smacks their partner with a 100 base power Dragon-type attack, and Phantom Force offers a delayed attack that makes Dragapult invulnerable while the protecting Pokemon's partner tries to knock you out. Not only that, but Ghostium Z gives Dragapult the opportunity to function as a fast, offensive support, letting moves like Will-O-Wisp, Thunder Wave, and Screens to support its team. While it doesn't have the benefit of stacking passive modifiers easily like Chi-Yu and Miraidon do, I think that Dragapult's speed, versatility, and tricky interactions with Protect in a format where Protect may be more valuable than ever before could make Dragapult a Phantom force to be reckoned with. With Z moves covered, let's move on to everyone's favorite mechanic, Dynamax, the 3-turn buff that doubles your Pokemon's HP and gives them access to max moves with powerful secondary effects. If you couldn't tell, Dynamax is my least favorite Omni Ring returning mechanic, but rather than pretending if I don't think about it that it can't hurt me, I looked at the Gen 9 Pokemon that best fit into the main Dynamax user archetypes. Know thy enemy after all. The first archetype is bulky weakness policy sweepers, and for that, I've chosen Ursaluna Blood Moon. Ursaluna benefits from doubling its already massive HP stat and has good synergy with Max Strikes and Max Quake, offsetting its low speed and special defense stats. I see Ursaluna best functioning on Trick Room teams with Dusclops, which can use Brick Break as a utility move to clear screens, which are popular during Dynamax formats, but more importantly, self-targeting Ursaluna to activate the weakness policy item, giving a +2 special attack boost, while also having the synergy of increasing its bulk through Max Quake special defense boost to secure a second Trick Room to close out battles. There is some anti-synergy with Max Strike lowering the speed of opponents in Trick Room, but that should really only be a factor against other mid-speed Pokemon. And this can honestly be situationally strong towards the end of Trick Room, where you can actually outspeed your opponents and take the final KOs with a +2 Blood Moon, which is essentially a max move on its own. The next Pokemon is Iron Treads, which of the Pokemon I've talked about has had the lowest peak. To give some idea of why I expect Treads to overperform with Dynamax, the 3 strongest max move types in Gen 8 were Steel, Ground, and Flying, since they raised you and your partner's defense, special defense, and speed by 1 stage. Iron Treads gets access to Stab, Steel, and Ground moves, a shared trait with Excadrill, which made it a top-tier threat in early Sword and Shield. Like Excadrill with Tyranitar's Sand, Iron Treads has the potential to get a Quark Drive speed boost from Miraidon or Tapu Koko's Electric Terrain, or you can train it to get an attack boost, which, when comboed off of Life Orb, makes it deal excellent damage. Power aside, I can't imagine a Miraidon that's getting 3 turns of Max Quake and Steel Spike boost defensively to complement its already impressive natural bulk. Now there's a lot that needs to happen for Iron Treads to come out as a winner in Champions. Essentially, it needs Koko and or Miraidon legal at the same time that Dynamax is legal. At this time, we're uncertain of how Champions will mix and match Pokemon and Omni Ring mechanic availabilities, but with the right combination, I can really see Iron Treads popping off. The last Dynamax archetype I want to cover is Pokemon that are primarily supporters with the potential to act as a situational sweeper, which I think Iron Bundle will perfectly exemplify. Iron Bundle is a peculiar Pokemon. It's usually the fastest Pokemon on the field, has great special attack, but is rarely able to function as a sweeper due to its attacks having low base power like Freeze Dry, or having unreliable accuracy like Hydro Pump. With Dynamax, Iron Bundle solves both of those problems. By powering up Hydro Pump with Max Vortex, Bundle will finally have an accurate water move, which also sets up Rain to boost itself in future turns and defends your partners from fire moves. Against grass types, you can finally take KOs with a Max Hailstorm, while gaining the Ice type defense boost in Snow, and potentially setting yourself up to use 100% accurate Blizzards, which some players will definitely opt in for with their moveset, so have fun with those freezes. However, I think the most reliable offensive moveset will be Hydro Pump, Freeze Dry since it's so valuable against water types, then Icy Wind to provide speed control out of Dynamax, and then finally Protect or, once again, Encore. I can actually see Encore being really common over Protect since all status moves turn into Max Guard, meaning if you really need to stall a turn and are willing to burn your Dynamax to do it, Encore is functionally the same as Protect. Encore also limits your opponents from protecting on your 3rd and final max move, since you could Encore lock them on the subsequent turn. While Iron Bundle had a solid Scarlet and Violet overall, I think it could be one of the Pokemon that best transitions to Champions in the Dynamax era that people are sleeping on. Now, with the past Omni Ring mechanics out of the way, let's look at past generation Pokemon that haven't yet seen the benefits of the current mechanic of Terastalization in official play. Scarlet and Violet also introduced many major changes that could breathe new life into Pokemon that are currently restricted to Pokemon Home. Of these new additions, Clear Amulet and Sinistra pique my interest the most. Clear Amulet should allow many Pokemon that used to be hamstrung by Incineroar's Intimidate and Parting Shot to actually play the game. And Sinistra enables bulkier setup strategies to take more initial damage and heal back up safely. The main 2 Pokemon I want to mention are Zygarde and Stakataka. Both of these Pokemon were strong, but struggled in past generations due to their 4x weaknesses. Terastalization gives both potent defensive options against their counters, which, combined with natural bulk, lets them consistently set up their win conditions of Dragon Dance or Trick Room. Afterwards, with Clear Amulet blocking Parting Shot and Intimidate, there's not much stopping them from pressing powerful spread moves like Zygarde's Thousand Arrows or Stakataka's Rock Slide. Additionally, with no Intimidate to ruin its day, Stakataka can finally take full advantage of its 150 base power Gyro Ball, dealing massive damage to most Pokemon. One quick note on Stakataka, it's been speculated that Champions will remove IVs from the game, and Stakataka might be the single Pokemon that would be most hurt by this. Stakataka's ability to manipulate its speed IV to 0 to maximize Gyro Ball power is pretty meaningful against middling speed Pokemon, and it's also been known to run a lower defense IV so that its Beast Boost ability grants an attack boost instead of a defense boost after taking a KO to snowball damage. Zygarde teams have also received a buff indirectly through the addition of Hospitality Sinistra. Once Zygarde transforms to complete form, a Sinistra Hospitality switch heals up to 80 HP, which will make it extremely difficult to knock out, especially if it can Terra away from any weaknesses. If Zygarde and Stakataka return, I expect both of these to be menaces in formats where Terra is legal, and even in ones without it, Clear Amulet still might make them broken. If you want to get a preview of these Pokemon in unofficial formats, I'd recommend an online format called National Dex DUU that has home-locked Pokemon legal with Terras and Z moves. Or rather, I would recommend it if Zygarde and Stakataka weren't some of the first Pokemon to get officially banned in that format, just to give you an idea of how strong these Pokemon are. The rest of the National Dex Pokemon that I expect to be good are just different flavors of these Pokemon. Tapu Fini's Calm Mind set combined with Defensive Terra, Incineroar Parting Shot, and Sinistra Hospitality is going to be a disgusting combination due to their healing and synergy. Celesteela I expect to be a potent checkmate Pokemon with access to Terastalization and Leech Seed, and Cortana I'd expect to massively benefit from Clear Amulet, since now it can easily 2-hit KO Incineroar with Sacred Sword, not to mention its raw 1-hit KO potential if you put it next to Chien-Pao's Sword of Ruin. With that said, those are the Pokemon I expect to be the biggest winners in Pokemon Champions. If you enjoyed, subscribe, I've got more Champions content on the way. Let me know which Pokemon I missed, and what Pokemon you're excited to try out when Champions releases. Thanks for watching, peace y'all.